everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Brandon.
And today we're going to tell you how we felt about the Animaniacs reboot on Hulu. Brandon and I watched the first couple episodes, so that's all we're talking about. We thought we would get a little bit of a sense of this show. I wanted to watch more than just the first episode since they dropped all of it, just so that we had a little bit of an idea of what the flavor of this was going to be moving forward. I guess we could have watched 3 or 4, but we've only got so much time in the day, so we just knocked out 2. We'll give you our first impressions. We just finished watching this minutes ago, so we've had 0 time to contemplate and get our heads together, and we're just going to kind of tell you, I mean, that's what the show is, just immediate reaction, how we felt about this. So, the Animaniacs reboot is trying really hard to be very authentic to what the original Animaniacs was in its animation, in music especially, which I think it's nailing, in the flavor of it, in the current satire of it, and it's making fun of especially the fact that everything is coming back in these 20-something year later sequels. It has kind of like a intentional conflict about whether or not it should even exist, and if this is a good idea. It's getting a lot of mileage out of that whole thing. And anyway, so we're going to go ahead and tell you how we felt about it. Brandon, why don't you start, man? First of all, just give me, what is your history with this show and with 90s Spielberg animation in general? Because I was a big fan of this period of animation, and I don't know what your history is with it.
Well, I mean, as far as so I remember when Animaniacs came on the air, and it was kind of it was a little bit different from what I'd kind of been used to, and I obviously at the time there were lots of jokes that went over my head.
Oh, sure.
That I came to love Animaniacs, but then I came to doubly love them when I started to get the jokes as an older person. And that's one of the things that I was really looking for, in this, as you said, staying true to form. Like I definitely think that they did that. I used to watch a lot of my stuff growing up. I watched the Looney Tunes, and some of the old stuff like the Merry Melodies and all that. And I really liked. I used to watch a lot of One Saturday Morning too, so I used to run the gamut. My sister controlled the TV basically,
yeah.
And I used to watch alongside her. So, I can't speak to specifically off the top of my head about what Spielberg was doing, with the exception of the Animaniacs. I'm drawing a blank at the moment.
Well, Spielberg was Tiny Toons, and Speaking of the Brain spun out of this.
Yes. So Tiny Toons.
But that's what I'm saying. Just this whole, and you had things like Hysteria, and
yes. So I almost mentioned Hysteria.
Yeah.
I remember when that came on the air, and I wanted to see that so bad. But my grandma saw the first episode of it and was like, "Never again."
And I can't find that anywhere.
It's nowhere. I don't find many people who remember Hysteria.
Sure.
And I remember the first episode. It opened up like The Simpsons. It had the same opening, and I think that automatically set my grandma against it, so I never got to watch it again. But I
was just naming some, some
no,
From
absolutely.
that period, yeah.
But
Freakazoid.
I felt like that one I never watched. I wanted to watch that, but I never watched that one. But this did feel extremely authentic for what it was in the current time frame, and I thought that was going to be very hard to do. Seldom do I see, for my taste, do I see them come back to something, and I may like it initially or think that I do, and then I find later on that it drops off. I don't necessarily think I'm going to have that with this. It seemed like they never lost a beat to me on this one. Trying to think of anything that I didn't like about this. Gonna have to think about that for a minute. Did you have anything that you weren't particularly keen on?
Yeah, so before I get into all of that, let me just say that, so Animaniacs was kind of at the bottom of my favorites for this period of Warner's cartoons.
Yeah.
With the exception of Pinky and the Brain, and when that spun off, I watched it all the time, and that is one of my favorite cartoons of all time. I mean, it's probably in like my top 3, top 5. And that was, of course, the thing that I was most excited about for this. And I mean, I thought it might win me over on some of the modern satire. And I like Animaniacs fine. Before this came out a couple weeks ago, I went back and watched a little bit because it had been a while, and I was like, no, this really holds up. I mean,
it's been a long time for me too. I should go back to it as well.
Yeah, and I should mention that a lot of the reason this got made, I'm sure, is because it came back on Netflix I think it was Netflix for a while. And it was sort of like Friends, where a bunch of people watched it that didn't grow up with it and that weren't around for it, and it resonated with a lot of people. And so I'm sure they were looking at that and going, maybe we can make more of this, like everything is doing. And like, of course, they're also making fun of the fact that it keeps happening for everything. It is a little awkward, I should say, that that they're having to write and animate this, trying to be timely so far before we're seeing it.
Yes.
And they're even making fun of that.
Yeah.
But if they hadn't pointed it out, I don't know if it would have seemed as awkward to me as it did.
I agree with that statement.
When they brought it up, it went, oh yeah, you're right, you're having to comment on stuff, because the thing is, you don't notice it as much. You wouldn't have noticed it as much in the 90s as those shows were coming out, because we didn't have internet time yet.
Right.
And the world is changing so fast now that back then, if you made fun of the most popular show on TV, chances were it would still be the most popular show on TV, or one of them, a year or two later, and that's just not the case anymore. And of course, we're doing a bunch of satire about not just where television is gone, but of course, even more so, that the big stars now are YouTube celebrities that stop being famous 5 seconds from now, and it's all about instant gratification. I thought the Instagram joke, where instant gratification, was kind of genius.
That was a good one.
And again, old school Animaniacs, all of that kind of stuff was really funny.
So I found it interesting that even though they were poking fun at the fact that they were doing this way earlier than we were actually going to see it, that they did the stuff that they were thinking could have the potential to have changed. They actually did get it right. They had like a 50-50 chance on the, they flipped the coin on the certain things that they were tackling, and they weren't on the wrong side. They wouldn't have had to cover their rears, but
a lot of it they weren't covering their rears at all. Like, they mentioned a couple of real things, and they just started making up crazy things.
Well, yes,
which was really funny,
and that was good.
So I don't even know what you're referring to. I realize you're trying not to go to spoilers, but
they mentioned because that's still a thing, right? That they weren't sure which side. You could tell that's a joke that they weren't side with.
Of what? I don't know what we're talking about.
One of the Trump references, and they make a mention about how he's still around. I mean, they had going on. What was going on at the time when they wrote that? There was a 50-50 chance of it could have gone the other direction.
Obviously, I don't want to get political, but I don't see how that's a 50-50 chance.
Well,
that somebody's going to get removed when they're in the middle of an impeachment? Like, that's not 50-50.
Well, no.
I don't know what you're talking about.
They went on the side that he wasn't going to get removed.
But that's not 50-50. The chances are that.
Well, there's many sides it could have landed on, but they got it right, is what I'm.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I'm not impressed with that. Again, I don't want to.
No, I'm not impressed by it either.
No, but when you say 50-50, no.
Okay.
Right? Well, that's not. No.
I guess not. I'm just using it to try to illustrate a point that I think that it was interesting.
But that's not like guessing at an election.
No.
An election is 50-50.
Okay, yes.
This is a guy is maybe going like they're not guessing at an impeachment. They're guessing about whether or not somebody gets removed from office. That's like really hard to do.
Yes.
That's the less likely thing.
They went with the thing that
is
happened.
A lot more likely.
Right.
Which is not 50-50.
Okay, not 50-50. But I'm trying to illustrate the point that I think that, at the time, it could have gone a number of different ways, but they ended up, the different things that they referenced, that's just one of the couple of, or 2 or 3 things that they referenced that they.
So that's almost all they actually brought up as far as real things went, and then after that, they just immediately started guessing at really silly pop culture stuff.
Well, yeah, and
so
there's no way to get.
There's hardly a real prediction there.
There's no way to guess.
That
where
doesn't
we
watch,
went.
and this is gonna play into some of my issues with this, honestly.
Okay.
But that didn't read to me like a prediction so much as like a hopeful thing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, yeah, he's probably still there, but we're hoping we're wrong about this. That's much more how that read to me.
That could be very possible.
Because there was a lot of Trump bashing through this, and like they went real heavy on that.
That was one of the I appreciated at least a couple of the jokes, but that was one of my downsides as well, is that they went there kind of too often for me.
It's just low-hanging fruit. It's what everything they're doing.
Exactly.
And I'm not saying I don't expect Animaniacs to not satirize that. In 2 episodes, they're hitting it real hard. It's like it just seems like they're following trends too much. You know what I mean? Like Animaniacs is making fun of trends, and this is kind of walking that line, and I think sometimes falling on the wrong side of it, of making fun of trends versus just doing the safe thing. Mm-hmm. And that struck me as the safe thing, but presented as if it was edgy. I didn't love that.
Yeah, and you mentioned that while we were watching, there were a couple of things that hit you that way early on.
Yeah. Okay, so this is a mixed bag for me. Yeah. Massive mixed bag. If I had to give a really simple, and this is oversimplified, and this is hyperbolic, so I will get a little bit more specific after and elaborate more after I say this, but if I had to give like a 10-second review, I would say I'm ultra mixed on the Animaniacs side, where some of it I'm laughing at, but I think it is too politically correct for its own good. And on the Pinky and the Brain side, it's nigh perfection.
Yeah.
The Pinky and the Brain stuff is awesome.
The Pinky and the Brain is like
spot
on.
It's spot on. It's just what that show always was. The writing is up to stuff. The satire is there.
It looks great.
It looks great. I like the new intro.
Yeah. Oh, I did too. I like that artwork.
Yeah, it's interesting and weird to me that they felt the need to change that. Like with Animaniacs, they went with the exact style of the original intro, and they only changed the end of it so that they can tell you that it's gonna be more modern. And I can't decide if they're saying, if they're patting themselves on the back, saying, "Look at us, we're gonna follow trends and be politically correct," or if they think they're making fun of being politically correct. I'm not sure. I'm feeling very funky about that. Yeah. And I'll talk about that intro here in a second. I was angry a minute into this.
You were.
There is one thing that a lot of people are going to say I'm nitpicking about when I say this, but there's one word that ticked me off, and I wanted to stop. It really upset me. And I was kind of worried that they were going to go there as part of it. And that, do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I do.
Okay. So
I'm
anyway.
pretty ssure I know the word you're thinking.
Yeah. No. I just...
Because when your reaction happened, I was like, okay.
I'm like, yeah. Anyway, but Pinky and the Brain's not having that. It's almost like I'm watching 2 shows, and it makes me wish that that's what we were getting, was just a Pinky and the Brain reboot. And having not watched all 13 episodes, I don't know if every episode is going to have a Pinky and the Brain. The original show didn't do that. They had other recurring segments. And there's allusion to new cast, but but so far it's only really in like the female head of Warner Brothers character. There's not really much else we've seen yet as far as like new people in just the first 2 episodes. I should mention too that most streaming shows right now are not doing the drop all at once thing that Netflix used to do everything with. Right. And I'm just kind of feeling funky about finally watching a show again where they're giving it all to you at once, because lately it's been much more TV-wise, which is, or doing it more like television does, I should say, like broadcast, which is smart for a lot of these services, because then you can't go in and binge the whole thing and then come out and not keep paying. So like, if they can keep you through a season, and the season is 13 episodes, then they get your money for 3 months. Yeah. And I don't know why it took so long for a lot of these shows to figure that out, but I think it was because, but I also think it was kind of smart at the same time to make the streaming thing get as popular as it did, because binging became such a big deal and people treated it more like they were getting a really long movie as opposed to. So if we had started with, you have to pay for a service and you have to wait every week. I don't know if some of this would have caught on as fast
It was
as
just
it did.
cable, honestly.
Yeah,
At that point.
Yeah, no, that's yeah.
It's just another a different cable.
Just that it's on
Like,
demand.
You got cable, you've got dish, you've got internet or streaming. Like it would be the same.
So Hulu is still doing that. I'm not sure that Hulu does it with everything. I feel like I have watched Hulu shows. I can't think of what that don't drop it all at once. Was it Hulu that had the miniseries, the Stephen King miniseries 11/22/63? I think it was them. I can't remember. And I think that show was weekly and not all at once, but I can't remember. That's my favorite Stephen King book. I watched half that series and turned it off. That was awful. But I can't remember if it was week to week or not. Anyway, I digress. I'm getting off on left field.
I still prefer the TV model too, anyway, just because I always felt, like not all of us can go out and binge a show, immediately.
Well, more and more, I'm with you. I guess we can talk about this for just a second, but I'm appreciating it with things like The Mandalorian because, and just anything that's really popular, because people can't spoil the whole thing before I get a chance to look at it.
Exactly.
I liked having it all dropped at once in case I was so into a thing I wanted to binge it all. Like, I appreciated it with The Tig, because it's, like, my favorite thing.
Yeah. And
so, like, I could watch it all over a weekend or in an evening even. And also, that show was, like, 3-hour seasons because they were so short. So, I appreciated not having to wait. But, again, at the same time, you might get things spoiled. And also, there's that thing of, if you binge a thing all at once and then you have to wait 8 or 9 months, you're a lot less likely to remember anything about it. You almost have to go back and binge it again.
Yeah.
Not all of us have the time to do that. So if you spread it out, it sticks with you longer. You have more time to let it sink in and to consider it. And have it in the back of your mind.
Yes, think about it. Get the storyline. And the ideas presented. Oh, sometimes you can miss a bunch just by going straight through a thing because you didn't even have time to process it.
Yeah, and even if the thing is made like a 10-hour movie where we're totally outside of Animaniacs now, but even if the thing is like a 10-hour movie and sort of meant to be watched that way, it's still a lot to process.
Certainly.
All at once. It's, I guess, somewhat ironic, if that's the right word, with Animaniacs, because you got 13 episodes all at once, and it is an episodic thing. Like it's old school cartoons. It's not like there's a running through line where there's one story being told from beginning to end. And I was a little concerned with the pilot that it might be like that a little bit.
Yeah.
That it would be the Warner Brothers spending the whole time just being fish out of water. And it helps that Yakko right away learns everything. About the last 22 years.
That was a good joke.
This also has that thing where some of the best jokes were in the trailer.
The trailers.
And I'm mixed on that because on the one hand, that's why I watched it, because I'm never sure about these things.
Sure.
And I didn't want to be disappointed because I'm almost always disappointed by this stuff. After Picard, I'm like, I just don't want to watch anything that is old and comes back after X-Files.
Right. Yeah.
I just don't want to do it anymore.
Burned me too.
I just don't want to. But I saw that teaser, that Jurassic Park teaser, which I thought was genius. And I was like, I have to give this a shot now. And then when I saw the trailer, I was like, I don't know, it looks really good. And then some of not that all the best jokes were in the trailer. I mean, it's pretty funny all the way through. I did find myself laughing a lot.
Yes.
But yeah.
I will say that, of the jokes that were in the trailer, we have now seen most of them in the first 2 episodes that we watched. So after
and then
the third episode,
forward,
we're going to get more jokes we haven't seen
and that's
yet,
standard for that kind of thing.
But I think at that point, though, I will just say, like, I'm looking forward to, if those jokes were good, I'm looking forward to the jokes that are good that I haven't seen yet.
This is going to sound harsh because there are a lot of things I laughed at even in the Animaniacs sections, but there's a part of me that wants to just skip to Pinky and the Brain and skip all the Animaniacs stuff.
I can understand that.
Some of it is just that, again, I'm not appreciating how PC it feels like it has to be. So let me go to that place for a second.
Sure.
And not everybody's going to agree with me on this, and that's fine, but I'm going to speak my mind about it because I don't like it. And I think, for me, it needs to be said. Animaniacs, and really all the Warner stuff in the early 90s, were not scared to say anything. And they just they just reacted, and they satirized everything, and there was no sense of partisan politics, and this absolutely has that, and everything has that right now, and I thought this was a chance to get away from that, and it didn't. If the Warner Brothers are gone for 22 years and they come back, and they're like, oh, we're going to go to the water tower, and we don't remember, we don't know anything since the 90s, they're going to act the way they acted. And I'm not saying that I really want this show to be a bunch of people saying, here's all the things you can't say now, but it's like it censored them.
Yeah.
Because Yakko and Wacko are not, like, excited about attractive women anymore. Because we just can't do that anymore.
Right.
And it's that same thing that we had when we looked at the new Muppet Show, and you can't make jokes about Miss Piggy anymore. Because that's fat shaming, like you just can't do that anymore.
Right.
And so it can't be what it used to be because we're just too afraid to make those jokes now.
And they're not even going to reference the fact that they're not doing those jokes because they're being, afraid about it.
Yeah, we can't say Hello Nurse anymore because somehow that's sexist. Which I don't understand, let me just say. Because back in the day with the original Animaniacs, all three of them did it.
Yeah.
Like, Dot was also making googly eyes at hot guys.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to us where we can't do that anymore? I don't understand how it's sexist, especially when we're doing it on both ends. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if it's just like pure awful objectification, and I mean especially like in the real world, these are cartoon characters,
right,
that are like making fun of everything, and it's a couple of dudes looking at attractive girls and making googly. We just can't do it anymore. And I was pretty sure they wouldn't go that far. But we censored it from the beginning in my mind, and again, people are going to think I'm nitpicking. I don't care. This is how I feel about it. To a absurd degree, right? What is sexist about calling a girl cute? Somebody explain that to me, because I don't understand it.
No.
It's like, and I'm getting to almost like an After Dark place with this, but I don't like it. Where it's like, we had to censor that? I think at the point where you have to do that, this is not the show to make. And they're doing as well as they can to be authentic under those constraints.
Sure.
But I don't understand why they have those constraints.
Yeah, that's a little interesting too.
So it's like, so let me give the context. So the line in the original song, and it is word for word exactly that song until the final verse, at the end of the final verse, except for this one thing. Dot is cute and Yakko yaks. It's now what is it? Dot has wit. Is what it is now. Dot has wit. Really? You had to censor that? Not that like it's my favorite line or anything. Like I have to have it. It's the principle of the thing.
That's so mild in and of itself.
It's so mild, yeah.
And if you're starting there, then
so, like,
you're censoring a lot more.
Yeah, so like it's easier for me to live with. We're going to avoid certain things just because we don't want to get in trouble or whatever. If you're not even censoring the mildest thing like that, it's exactly the word. That, I know I'm going to get in trouble with some people with this video, but like I said, it's just how I feel about it. Like, that turned me off right away. And more it started winning me over because I thought a lot of it was really funny.
Yeah.
But there's a lot
I was really worried when you reacted the way you did.
I wanted to turn it off.
I was like, oh man. And then I got worried that you were right. But then it actually, I was making sure that I wasn't just like having starry eyes for the past. I was like, okay, is Cap right about this? I want to check. And then there actually were some very, very funny bits. By the way, I never flipped my actual sign. I am feeling it.
This may be the first time I don't flip it.
Okay.
I mean, I'll flip it green
like
for
you
Pink
said
in the
you were
Rain,
back and forth.
But like,
back and forth, yeah.
I don't know. I'm having a real tough time with it. Like I said, there's a part of me that I'm not sure I want to keep watching it besides the Pinky and the Brain stuff, because I'm worried it gets worse about it.
And
with just 2 episodes, I can't be sure. I'm afraid it gets a lot worse about it.
I'm gonna say,
and I'm getting paranoid about these things because too much is doing that now, and we can't just. I don't know. We can't just let loose anymore with comedy. We got to be afraid of offending people with satire. Yeah. And that's the last place to worry too much about that.
Because that's what satire is.
You see, you see what I'm saying?
I do see
and so
it. Absolutely.
And it's worse with a thing like this because it's almost coming out and saying like we're not afraid to say anything. Well, clearly it is.
Clearly, it's afraid in some areas.
Yeah.
What I was going to say
now,
is...
it may be, to be fair, because I want to give people the benefit of the doubt. To be fair, it's possible that the people who make this just really think that way. And just really think that somehow it's like, it seems too sexist to call a girl cute in a cartoon. But it watches like we're towing a line. And when it says like that, the line about being like gender neutral and like neutral pronouns and all of that, again, I don't know what it's doing. I don't know if it's making fun of that stuff or if it's saying we're doing it right. Like we have, don't worry, we are a crazy satirical show, but we're not going to push the line too much.
I got the idea with that line specifically in the intro. I got the impression that they were trying to see that they were actually making fun of having to be like that in like the modern age, and maybe they weren't necessarily going to be like that in the modern age. They were still going to do some of that satire and get away with it. I'm hoping that's where they were coming from with that line.
Yeah, but so far they're not doing that.
They haven't yet, so I'm kind of less on that thinking than I was ahead of time.
Because it gets real political, and if it was making fun of everything, sure, but it's going for the low-hanging fruit most of the time.
Right. And I wanted to see more of the everything category. It's
making fun of Hollywood and how it's falling apart, and that's great, and it should be doing that. That was good. And they always did that. I mean, this feels almost like they're checking back in with what they predicted back in the 90s, where it's like, least common denominator, throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks, anti-intellectualism, this attacks that head on, which always resonated with me with these shows in the 90s, and especially does now. And I mean, like, it's almost like we've gone past the point of no return on that, and they know that, and it is nice to see them come back and check in on that stuff. But when you get into the political side, it is very much just it's the thing that we have with X-Files, which we didn't review because it would have just been me screaming at the camera for an hour.
I never did finish that.
It's like you're preaching or maybe like laughing with the choir. Where it's like, yes, most audiences that would think to watch this are probably going, we don't love Trump either. But like, it's not funny anymore. It's obvious. It's like, it
didn't need it.
It almost ruined a sketch that I otherwise really, really liked in that second episode. Where all of a sudden they go there out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so we gotta do this just every chance we get.
I will say this, even when the jokes such as that one didn't fly for me, I liked the overall the storyline, for the most part.
Yeah, but it felt like at the end of the day, it was just an excuse to get to that gag.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate.
That Odysseus sketch, I liked everything else about that. I thought it was I thought it was really funny. I thought it was really clever. It did again. Going up against anti-intellectualism, they like to, and it's cool they're still doing this, and I've not looked at the staff and who exactly is involved in this, but it's obviously some of the same people. It's gotta be. If it's not, I'm really impressed. But, you go back to the original Animaniacs, and they're constantly...
I think they got most of the same people for this.
You're constantly, but I don't know with writers. I don't know who's writing this.
Okay,
but
true enough.
That's what I'm talking about. When you go back to the original Animaniacs, it's a lot of... like going to famous literature and like actually doing your homework, and they did that with the Greek mythology stuff, and it was really clever.
What I was going to say a couple of minutes ago, though, is it is perfectly acceptable if you decide that all you want to watch is the Pinky and the Brain stuff. I mean, that seems like it would go without saying, but like you could end up just fast forwarding it to the Pinky and the Brain stuff. I don't think anybody would fault you for that.
I don't know yet. I mean, I'll probably give it one or two more episodes. And
sure.
Just see if they can do some sketches without going to the really obvious places when they decide to comment on politics. Because that's like most of what they're doing so far. But yeah, and so far too many musical numbers. Like that show did a lot of music, but it's been mostly that so far. And
it's been a lot of that.
I need to, I need some more than just like straight up Animaniac sketches and like let them do some more stories. But I don't know. The sign flip is really hard for me. What else about this have we not talked about?
I mean, we kind of touched on the fact they made some '90s references that I appreciated.
The long list of reboots, mostly bad, was kind of fun.
They're okay. So there was a couple of things in the trailer that I had worried that they were botching, namely the theme song. But when I heard because they aired a modified version of what they ultimately played as the opening, which is true to Animaniacs form. They did a modified one in the trailer, and I was like, oh, that didn't sound right at all. But they fixed that, so I was happy about that.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with a moderate green because I'm liking a lot of it despite the PC issue. I'm just really disappointed with that. I think this is the last kind of thing that should have that problem. Yeah, I just wish it didn't watch censored.
Right.
And to be fair, the TV show made fun of the fact that it had that like television has censors. But does Hulu? Like, does it have to be censored?
I guess
you see what I'm saying? It's not on broadcast television anymore. Yeah. It doesn't really have that now. So I don't really get that. There's also a slight degree of who is this for? Like, I don't know if this is intended to be watched by kids at all. I'm not even saying that's a problem. I'm just not sure. Going as strong and heavy on the political stuff as they're doing, it kind of makes me wonder if their target demographic is just the people who grew up with the show. Now, I respect the fact that they've not gone into swearing territory and stuff, which is not a given anymore, because, again, they don't have censors.
Right. Well, they mentioned one of their songs, speaking of the songs again, right after one of the songs, they're like, this isn't your dad's Animaniacs, but it was kind of funny because in a lot of ways,
it's your dad watching it.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it was your dad's. Like, you're a dad now, you watch this growing up.
It is and it isn't, though, right? Because, like, what is, like, it's authentic for the most part in the humor and the timing. And
the animation style.
And the animation style, for the most part, it certainly watches more digital. Like, it has the same thing that the newer Warner Brothers cartoons do, where it's like, it's approximating hand-drawn, but it's...
Yeah, well, they said it in the opening sketch, the clean vectored lines.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah. And I knew that, but it may not be traditional animation, but it is true to form, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, just in the look of it, overall, yeah.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it is trying to be edgier.
Even while still holding back in some areas.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just, and again, this isn't even necessarily a criticism. I'm curious to know if they want kids to watch this. I can't tell.
I can't tell either, but so far I've seen nothing that would. I mean, we started out with Jason sitting with us, so nothing that I saw. I recognized some of the jokes that I would not have recognized as a kid. That obviously Jason doesn't get.
Yeah.
That I felt like okay, this is one thing I really appreciated. There were still those layered jokes that were good for both kids and for adults in a couple of areas, and that is definitely true to Animaniacs form.
Yeah,
there wasn't maybe as much as I seem to remember from certain episodes back in the day, but I appreciated that, and it caught my attention. So I think maybe in that way, sure. I mean, kids can watch it. I don't think it's necessarily written for kids, but it's not written for not for kids.
Yeah.
If that the sentence came out weird, but I think you know what I'm saying with that one.
I had something else I was going to say, but I can't remember what it was. Anyway, well, like I said, it's a mixed bag for me.
I was green.
It did the thing I was kind of worried it would do, but it is funny. I did enjoy a lot of it. Pinky and the Brain is, I should mention, those guys are sounding older. There's no way around it. And weirdly, the Animaniacs don't, except for Dot when she talks too long. If she has,
I agree with that.
If she has like a couple short lines of dialogue, she sounds exactly like she did in the mid '90s. But as soon as she gets a monologue, her age starts to show a little bit.
Yeah.
There's not much you can do about that.
No, and I mean, it didn't detract for me, but you can tell.
I don't know if I'm going if I'm making stuff up when I say this. I felt like Brain, because what is that voice actor's name? LaRoche? I can't remember. And I'm not sure how old he is now, but I mean, like he certainly sounds older, and it was almost like they were trying to draw the Brain to look older, to match the voice.
He had a little bit of a saggier face, don't you
and
think?
they didn't do that with Pinky. But with Brain, it was like they were trying to make him look wrinklier and a little older.
I did get that impression, absolutely.
I don't know if that's a bad thing,
There were a
really.
couple close-ups on his face, and I was like, okay, he's a little more gaunt than he used to be.
It fit the voice better.
Uh-huh.
Right? I don't want to give anything away. I loved the Pinky and the Brain stuff.
It was great. It was absolutely great.
Especially the first one, but I thought they were both really
And
solid.
like we touched on a few minutes ago, like the artwork in the opening, the new intro for Pinky and the Brain, like that artwork was great.
Yeah, and again, I don't know why they changed it, but it's awesome.
It worked.
And the I Think So Brain jokes, which are always my favorite. Both of those of the episodes we watched were really, really good. And that won me over immediately with Pinky and the Brain. I was like, you gotta nail those. You know, have I ever told you this? You know, my favorite of those of all time is? Pinky, are you pondering what I'm pondering? Well, I think so, Brain, but do you think people would still buy it if you called it a sad meal? It's one of my favorite jokes
That's a good
of
one.
all time. So good.
One of my favorite Pinky and the Brain episodes is where he builds the transmitter out of a pie plate and a fork, and he builds a supercomputer to take everybody's information down. And this is at a time when supercomputers like filled buildings and stuff, and so that they get this military satellite and they start broadcasting these ballerinas, which are just the music box ballerinas, dancing around. And they get all the numbers, but people have been watching television for so long that when the broadcast ends, the supercomputer is water cooled, and when the broadcast...
I don't remember this one right
Oh
off.
my goodness. And when the broadcast ends, everybody has to use the bathroom, and it drains the water in the supercomputer that just compiled all the numbers in the United States, and it fries the supercomputer. It's a great episode.
Have you ever seen... I saw this the other day. Have you ever seen the one where... And this was actually in an Animaniacs episode, where Pinky and the Brain decide to become, like, child puppet stars?
I don't recall
and
that.
They go on a TV show and they pretend to be puppets in this, like, kid show, so they can, like, win the hearts and minds of children, so that they'll grow up with them.
Start young.
And then, but the idea is... like cancel the show or take them, off the show at the height of its popularity, so that the kids will miss them, and then they go into cryostasis, and then they come out when they're adults, and then they think that Brain thinks that he's going to be able to rule the world now because of all the adoration from these kids that as adults, like they'll just trust him and give him everything, and instead they come at him with fire and pitchforks.
Oh my goodness!
Because when they left at the height of their popularity, it caused the kids so much trauma they had to go in therapy all those years.
That's funny.
That was great.
That's good. No, I never saw that one. That's hilarious.
But they do something kind of similar. Well, they do the old mind control thing, which is a Pinky and the Brain staple. And in the first one we watched, where Brain tries to become like a YouTube meme. And I thought that was really clever. And the way Pinky messes it up is really good. I thought everything about that was classic. And I will give them props for making fun of like late night television the way they always used to. And I don't know. I felt like Pinky and the Brain didn't have the PC issues. that Animaniacs did. Again, it felt like I was watching two different things. Like, that I could see them making fun of anybody, but Animaniacs, it feels like they wouldn't do that, and they're pulling punches.
But Pinky and the Brain did it in a different style.
Yes, and
so
that
I
helps.
think they can get away with more with that style.
Maybe so.
Than they can with the anime. Because, I mean, like...
I don't mean to keep harping on this.
Well,
it's the thing I didn't like. I don't know.
But Pinky and the Brain didn't have to be so PC, because it wasn't touching on the things that were, like, PC. You know,
it can though, because I mean, it would go to. It would deal with a lot of the things Animaniacs would too. Like Pinky and the Brain dealt with politics and things too, and would take jabs at whoever was in the White House. But whoever was in the White House, you know what I mean?
That's true. That's true.
So I don't know. It's an odd bag, and I kind of wish we'd watch 3 or 4 more.
Well, I know you had other things you wanted to get done as well.
I just didn't have time tonight, and this just dropped recently, and I
do want to watch a couple more as well.
And usually this is what I do. I'll watch a pilot, or I'll watch the first couple episodes and just check in on it. And we may come back and talk about it more after we've watched all of it, especially if my feelings have changed. Mm-hmm. I'll maybe want to talk about it again.
Sure.
But anyway, so like I said, I don't expect everybody to agree with me on this. That's just how I felt about it. That thing rubbed me the wrong way. But the more we're talking about it, it is really funny.
Yeah. And
that's what most matters at the end of the day, of course. And that's why I feel like it's only fair to turn my sign green.
Yeah.
Because I did enjoy it.
Well, when you started laughing during the episode, I was like, okay, good. At least I'm not the only one finding this funny, because a lot of times our comedy sensibilities are a lot different.
Are real different, yeah.
And to know that we were laughing in some cases at the same moment for a certain thing, I was like, this is nice. This is a nice change of pace.
Well, leave your comments. Let us know what you think about the show if you started watching it. And thanks a bunch for clicking on this video. And we will see you again with lots more stuff here on Geek Evolution. I was Captain Logan.
And I was Brandon.
Thanks for joining me, Brandon.
Thanks for having me.
See you next time, guys.